Okay, hi guys, it's Andy from Man City Fan TV. I'm here outside the Etihad post Man City Bournemouth game, City winning 3-1. I'm here with Jonathan Northcroft from the Sunday Times, and I want to say a massive thank you to Jonathan for engaging with us on Twitter.
No, thanks, Andy.
No, you're more than welcome. First thoughts, what about the game?
It was a strange game because you're not used to seeing City play badly these days, and they didn't play badly overall, but there was a bad 20 minutes in the middle where it didn't look like a Pep Guardiola team. Great first 30 minutes, fine last 20 minutes with Silva coming on and making a difference. That little bit in the middle was, I said in my match report, that's a bit I'll actually remember because you're not used to seeing City play like that.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But the funny thing was, Pep Guardiola was actually quite happy about it afterwards.
Yeah.
He said that'll be like a weapon in our pocket to use against the players if he sees any complacency from now on. And it's little things like that, I think, that make him the kind of man manager he is. But I think for those 20 minutes, it just shows what happens when City, maybe the intensity goes down a little bit. That pressing game isn't there. The passing isn't as quick as normal. Suddenly look like a normal team, but as I say, it was quickly restored, especially after Silva came on.
Absolutely. What were your thoughts on, for me personally today, in second half in particular, I thought Raheem Sterling was excellent.
Yeah, he's getting more and more of a leader, more and more mature, and I thought he was a bit quiet at times in the first half. It looked like he was the one that came out after half-time. Him and Fernandinho came back out with a sort of added edge to their game, and the way he just picked up the ball and went at Bournemouth. There's that run, he beat about 3 people and then shot hit the post. That just seemed to lift everybody. It was a bit of leadership, and then he showed the appetite to score that goal. And I just think it shows how he's becoming such an important player.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Jonathan kindly came on camera. A bit of backstory as to why we had a bit of a debate on Twitter a week or so ago, and we had the issues that came out with the Matthew Hedges case in Abu Dhabi, and Jonathan had actually sort of posted on Twitter that there was an article in The Guardian which he said that he thought was quite fair. I engaged with him with regards to it, and we got into quite a long debate, didn't we?
We did.
Over the day or so. And my thoughts were, without going into all of the Matthew Hedges thing and all that again, what you actually posted something on Twitter the other day, almost like intimating that maybe you can see it from our point of view as Man City fans with some of the let's say some of the stick we've had as fans and as a club.
Yeah.
So what's your thoughts? Where do you stand now?
Yeah, it's first of all, I think it's a difficult time as a journalist to know how to pitch these things, where to stand. There's so many issues that seem to be coming into football. I go back actually to 2011, the Luis Suarez racism case. That was the first time for me as a football journalist I really found myself writing about stuff that was kind of outside football, and with social media everything became so heated around that time, and it just feels like we've gone on and on. We've had World Cups in places like Russia where the tournament's been used for political ends, and then Manchester City I find a very difficult subject to gauge sometimes, because you've got such a beautiful football team, you've got such a club that I admire in many ways, but I'm uncomfortable with the ownership. I'm uncomfortable rather with what happens in Abu Dhabi with human rights and all that kind of stuff. And I think I posted that article because it was a City fan, Simon Hattonston, writing in The Guardian about how uncomfortable it makes him feel. But I think what came out of talking to you, Andy, was once you get past the kind of journalist, it's quite easy for us to just tweet things without really thinking, or maybe not sort of seeing it from anyone else's point of view, and it's quite easy, I think, for fans to then sort of bite back at you. I get that, I don't mind, but once we started talking, I think what came home to me was maybe how at this time maybe your club's being a little bit used as the one example among all journalists when we want to make points like, politics are coming into football, which I think you made the point that, we've got to look at the Russian World Cup, we've got to look at Qatar, we've got to look at the Emirates sponsorship of Arsenal, and we've got to look at maybe Saudi Arabia buying into United. And I actually think all that's fair. I think reflecting on it, I'm still not going to feel comfortable about human rights in Abu Dhabi, but actually maybe it's a bit too easy just to say, well, throw it all at City and not look at how things are going globally.
Yeah.
As I say, which is that football's just becoming football's so big now that it's become part of geopolitics.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing that annoyed me was with some of the journalists, not yourself, but some of the journalists. Everything was quoting. We had Duncan Castles and the others quoting Amnesty International.
Yeah.
Now, if you go on Amnesty International's website, there are 4 or 5 key areas on there that are calling for jailed women in Saudi Arabia for driving.
Yeah.
They are the whole issue with the arms deals to Saudi Arabia and the bombings in Yemen and the British involved in that. And yet nobody ever seems to, football journalists I'm talking about, nobody writes about that and associates those type of events on Amnesty International to Manchester United or to Chelsea or to these clubs involved. It seems that at the moment, over the last six weeks or so, it's been very much everything has been Man City, and the likes of Matthew Said calling us fans rats, that really gets our backs up.
That's not a word really a journalist should be using, to be honest. I know Matthew. I'm surprised. I'm surprised he wrote that. I mean, fans aren't rats.
But you can understand why Man City fans suddenly, when they hear, being referred to as a rat, and then you get everything else with the Matthew Hedges case, where it was, City fans, you should be up in arms, and at the end of the day, we're football fans.
Yeah.
Do human rights, these atrocities or whatever we believe you want to call them, do they sit well with us? Possibly not. Probably not. Definitely not. But at the end of the day, we're fans.
Yeah.
We just come to watch our team. And if this was being spread around by football journalists, it's okay for mainstream journals to be, writing about this. But when it crosses over into football and it's just City constantly, then you can see why people bite back.
I can, and I also think there's got to be a level of honesty from journalists and from fans of other clubs. So I'm an Aberdeen supporter now. I will be an Aberdeen supporter no matter what happens to Aberdeen, no matter who owns them, who plays for them. That's just what being a fan is. Yeah. And I got to reflect on that and think, well, how is it for City fans? What do I expect City fans to do? I mean, I don't expect City fans to stop supporting City. I don't expect City fans to become political campaigners. I don't expect City fans to stop enjoying the football they see here, because as a journalist I enjoy the football I see here. I look forward to going to Manchester City. Where I think the line should be drawn, and it's not just for City, I think it's for fans of all clubs. So take Arsenal fans with the Emirates Stadium or whatever. We should just see sponsorships and ownerships for what they are. And you can make your own choice about that. Wherever you stand politically, make your own choice about it. But I think sometimes it gets blurred when fans think they have to support the owners. Well, I think they have to support the football club, but I don't think they have to support the owners. Now, as I say, you can have your own views on the rights and wrongs of Abu Dhabi and City. So I'm just making a general point.
Sure.
But it's like the World Cup. I find it quite difficult reporting the World Cup because we're all enjoying Russia. It's a great World Cup. Russian people are nice, but you've got to kind of be realistic and think, I've got to separate Putin out from this. And I think we should. I just want to try and separate it a little bit. And I don't agree. While I think journalists like me are right to have these opinions, if we don't like these things. I'm a football journalist. I shouldn't really be bringing it into my match reports, for example, and I have seen that creeping in. That's I know colleagues will disagree with me on that as well. So I just think it's a really difficult period to know how it's stands.
Yeah, I think that last point that you said there, I think that's the crux of it for certainly for me and many City fans is what you said there is bringing sort of politics into football, and there's a crossover there whereby. Some of the terminology that's used by certain journalists. I mean, Ian Herbert at the Daily Mail wrote, his match report from West Ham, and within 3 paragraphs he was referring to Abu Dhabi and regime and Matthew Hedges and how it doesn't sit well. And this is a football match report, and it's like, come on, Just tell us about the match. You know, your thoughts on the match, and that's where I think it's wrong. I do think it's wrong. I don't, if you want to write an article, you know, and you write on a Sunday and things like that, and Martin Samuel does his little pieces on a weekend. If you want to write about it there, fine. Yeah. That's not. But when people open up a paper or go online to read the match report, do they really? You know, certainly as City fans, we don't want to be bombarded with some journalist's thoughts on, you know, geopolitics and things like that. We want to read a match report. Yeah,
I mean, Ian's one of my favourite journalists. He's a brilliant writer. I wouldn't have done that personally in that match report. I mean, I as I say, I think the time to write about this was maybe the 10-year anniversary. I was on Sunday Supplement, said a few things about that. But that's the time to discuss the ownership, for example. Yeah. I think one of the things at City that you're confronted with is that this club is used by Abu Dhabi to you know, try and give everyone a good image of the country. It is a project. So,
but on that point, do you honestly? And I said this on Twitter. Do you honestly believe that as Man City fans, we're here, and 10 years ago we thought, oh my God, we've got an owner who actually supports Man City and wants to. Yeah. Of course we don't. Yeah. You know, we're not stupid. Yeah. We know the reasons why they've purchased Manchester City. We understand that, and we understand that what's going on and buying other clubs around the world. We completely understand. We're not daft in respect of not knowing the real reason behind it. But as football fans, we don't care.
Yeah. No, and I can see why you'd feel patronised by journalists who say that you're being naive, because you know, in my experience, Mancunians generally are not naive about anything. So you know, I'm sure it is in perspective. I felt around the time of the 10th anniversary, you know, it was just in danger of getting a bit sort of saccharine, and you know, it's got to be realistic and say, okay, what they've done on the football side is unbelievable. I mean, you know, City get criticised for spending lots of money. Well, lots of clubs have spent lots of money and not spent it very well. It's been spent better here than I think money's ever been spent in football. But I don't like the pretense that it's some kind of altruistic sort of, you know, gesture from some romantic guy who just fell in love with Man City. But as you say, Andy, that City fans don't necessarily see that.
No, we don't look at it in that respect. Yeah. You know, and then obviously, sort of finally to wrap it up, because it's cold and you've got a long trip home. It was interesting. We were chatting before the match to some City fans and things, and you know, we had the Matthew Hedges debate, and City fans were getting dragged into it. You know, it's like, you know, we're to blame. We should be doing more to get him out of this, you know, this position. Now, a lot of things were wrote about that, and yet he's now released. The rumours are that Sheikh Mansour had some sort of involvement at political level. Where's all the articles thanking Sheikh Mansour for being involved, and you know, apologies potentially for telling us that we're the ones who should be boycotting our club to get Matthew Hedges out of prison?
Yeah, I know, and there has to be balance, hasn't there?
There's been nothing. There's been absolutely nothing.
Yeah,
not a thing.
I mean, another thing is, you know, you are confronted with trying to understand Abu Dhabi, and you know, Sheikh Mansour is part of the royal family that runs the country, and it's the way that, you know, it's the regime in the country that imprisoned Matthew Hedges. I have to say, you know, the other thing is we don't actually know the case. No. What I was uncomfortable with was he had a 5-minute trial, and you know, you want a different judicial process.
But wasn't that 5-minute trial a sentencing hearing because he'd already pleaded guilty?
Yeah, well,
which wouldn't last that long anyway if it wasn't a trial.
Yeah,
but it's interesting that word trial gets used a lot. Yeah, it's the fact that he pleaded guilty and that was a sentencing hearing.
You wonder why he pleaded guilty.
I mean, we're not getting into the.
I know,
when journalists use that, you know, that phrase theology whereby they say, well, it was a 5-minute kangaroo court. Yeah, and it's like, well, actually, it wasn't. It was a sentence. It was a sentencing hearing. He'd already pleaded guilty, and that was just a natural 5-minute. He pleaded guilty. This is your sentence. So it's these little tiny sort of twists on words that when the neutrals read them, just go, oh my God, that's shocking, without really understanding the facts behind exactly. Like I said, we don't know exactly what went on, but yeah, it's interesting that nobody has come out. I mean, you saw it on Twitter. we posted on our channel on
Yeah.
Twitter, you know, I hope we're going to get thanked by, you know, the journalists for getting for free. I mean, just tongue in cheek, you know, because we'd had the week before of it was our fault that we're not doing more. But it'd be nice if journalists actually wrote something.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've got to think about what we're writing. I think I don't think City fans had to campaign to free Matthew Hedges. I just think
we did.
I did. Yeah. I just think it was another episode that made me uncomfortable about Abu Dhabi as a country. But you know, that, as I say, that doesn't make me uncomfortable about coming here to watch a football match.
I hope not.
And it doesn't make me think that if I was a City fan, I'd be doing anything other than supporting Manchester City. You know, I mean, that's just the fact. But I think City fans are, you know, in a difficult position as well. Or maybe some of them aren't. Maybe some of them, you know. And I also get that there are some people who just want to watch football, and that's a release from the real world.
Yeah,
that's fine. Yeah. That's fine. I think that, you know, my sort of final thing would be the things that make me kind of taken aback on Twitter, for example, is when, as I said earlier, when fans feel they've got to kind of justify the ownership. When fans start lecturing you about politics the other way, you know. So I think fans get
vice versa.
Yeah, exactly. So fans get uncomfortable with us lecturing them, and it's when you get lectured back the other way. I mean, I had a guy that, when I criticised Abu Dhabi on Sunday Supplement, sort of tweeted me and said, "Well, what about Canada? Canada's not a perfect country." And I was like, why are you talking about Canada? You know, or someone found out I came from Aberdeen. Or what about the deaths in the oil industry? And you're like, why are we getting into this? This is what we should be getting into.
So do you think actually, as journalists, you should be getting into it at all, or should you actually be? I know there's a backstory to it, and I understand that, but when it becomes political, I mean, you are crossing a line.
I think we have to be clear. We have to separate the football from the politics, not allow, because I do think that the part of the PR is to make us look at the football and think, well, it's beautiful football, therefore it's a beautiful country. Not fall for that, but that's all I'm asking for. That separation. I think other than that, not to go and start writing about politics every week. Or if we're going to do that, as we've said, Andy, write about it with every club, and also acknowledge, you know, the influence on football from, you know, countries is really widespread. You know, Qatar, PSG, the sponsorship of the Spanish clubs, the Emirates Stadium, all of that. So we have to. Let's be balanced and let's be sort of separation, I think.
Absolutely.
But I think I'm still figuring it out. You know, and I think one of the things that was useful about chatting to you is hearing it from a City fan, City point of view, and not just seeing it from a kind of, you know, maybe a narrow journalist point of view.
So my final question: when are you going to write about the Saudis and Man United?
Look, if there's
that's a loaded question.
It's a loaded question, but if there's if there was a Saudi takeover of Manchester United, I would feel horrendously uncomfortable about that. And it hasn't been lost on me that some of the United fans who like to criticise Abu Dhabi have also been quite pleased that Saudi Arabia might be. So you know,
we're fickle as fans.
We've got to be, we've got to kind of be. Kind of got to be honest. That I hope it doesn't happen, because I just don't want to go through this with another football club.
You'll be on one of the Man United fan channels, I guess.
Oh yeah, well,
justifying your 25 million sort of like horrendous tweets that you're going to receive. Anyway, listen, I want to say a massive thank you. I really appreciate it. You know, I know you've got a long drive. We've got a long drive back, but I just want to say thanks for being honest. And like I said to people on Twitter, so, you know, if we engage with journalists rather than just tweeting them and just telling them to do this and do that and do the other, you know, you get a wonderful sort of insight, like Jonathan's just given us. So I just want to say a massive thank you.
I appreciate it, Andy, and as I say, thanks for engaging with me and not sort of haranguing me about Canada or whatever.
Thanks very much.
All right, mate.
Cheers.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, Andy.